Email marketing has held its weight as the #1 champion for driving conversions to most businesses. I'm going to be sharing with you the top 6 best practices you have to know before you set up your email program. I'm going to also share a couple of metrics that will put things in perspective. So let's dive right into it. The first thing you have to do is get your technical implementation right. This honestly takes just a few minutes as long as you have access to your domain DNS from which you're sending out your campaigns. And I've done tons of videos on this. It takes literally about 4 or 5 minutes of your time. Just to kind of explain it briefly, you have 2 main keys, SPF, DKIM, and you have some optional keys which, sure enough, by the time you watch this, might also be required, DMARC policy and BIMI, which builds on top of DMARC. You think about SPF as your ID, driver license, DKIM as your passport, DMARC as your own policy for accepting emails, and BIMI is adding your logo, like you see here in this photo, to your email. So the recipient, like the Gmails of the world, they will literally look at your SPF. If you did set it up properly, you're going to pass. DKIM, if it's done right, you're going to pass. If you have a DMARC, you should pass. And finally, if you have your BIMI, they're going to display your logo. The BIMI is relatively new, so bear with the technology as it catches up. Not all Gmails of the world are supporting it. So that's the first step. Get your setup right, because this will make a huge impact on what's to come. The second thing is learning sender reputation. Now, this is very, very important because you need to have some sort of a warm-up plan when you move to a new email platform. That means if you have 10,000 emails, don't just blast them in one shot. Set them up in an email list and use a program to chunk up your sending over a few days, or if possible, over a few weeks. Okay, this could be a welcome email, this could be a new announcement, etc. I do understand sometimes you have the urgency to send today and now, but if you have the option to just stretch it out over a couple of weeks' time, do that. And we have a technology in VBOUT that allows you to do it. It's called chunk sending, and I'm going to show you how you can use it in the following module. Now, expect your reputation to take about 3 to 6 months of build-up, and that has to be consistent sending. You can't just send that once every 3 months and expect to have a reputation with the SPs. So expect 3 to 6 months of solid sending and proper sending before you start building a proper reputation. Use the same domain that you verified already with the SPF and DKIM and such. The same inbox, so don't switch between info, hello, your own personal. And ideally, if it's possible, send from a real person and not from generic sales ad or marketing ad. Okay. Now, there is one additional factor that takes into play, which is the IP you're sending from. So make sure whoever you're working with have clean IPs and they have a way to swap IPs and scrub them if they ever get blacklisted. We focus on reputation a lot in VBOUT. We're always monitoring our IPs, and we work very closely with you on this warm-up program. The third thing is vetting your lists properly. Never buy lists, because most likely you're going to get caught. The Gmails of the world, they understand if you're sending out an email to 10,000 people who never opted in, a big chunk of those will opt out, another big chunk will bounce, and some will complain. So those metrics are going to impact your reputation negatively, and you're going to set yourself to failure. So be sure to vet the proper lists from the right source. Just send to people who gave you consent if possible, and communicate why you're sending out emails to them. I always preach about data. The more data, the better, because then you can segment better, you can target better, and you can even tailor the messaging better. And that's part of good long-term data architecture, which I've covered in the previous module. Number 4, decide how you'd like to format your emails. Overall, the world is split between the full HTML that looks nice and pretty and the naked HTML that looks like it's sent from your inbox. In VBOUT, we support both. It's up to you to choose which format to send. We've seen amazing results on both sides of the game. The only difference, obviously, if you're sending from the naked template, is a lot less work when it comes to design. It looks like it's sent from your inbox, so maybe it's better fit for transactional reasons. If you're going the full HTML route, Make sure your text to image ratio is proper. Don't just slap a banner in there and let it go. Make it nicely ratioed between the images and the copy so the filters can pick up on your keywords. Fonts have to be universal. Don't choose a font that nobody have heard of and is not supported by browsers. Your emails should be responsive, and all of these are really natively built into VBOUT. Be keyword spam aware. We have a built-in tool that lets you, with one click, check how your email is scoring, but try to navigate your way around, the minimum possible amount of keywords. And we do have some tools which are public, as well as built into VBOUT, that let you check keyword spam. Number 5, create a sunset policy. This is really, really important because you have to be doing something with emails that are never engaging and never opening, right? Let's just focus on the open rate for a second. If you're sending 10,000 email and your open rate is anywhere between 15 to 25%, what are you doing with those 7,000 or 6,000 people that are not opening? Gmail and Outlook and all these guys, they want to see more engagement per volume. So segment your lists between those who open and those who don't, and have some sort of a policy which is either lenient, meaning those who don't open emails, try to send them once a month only or once every quarter. And if they don't do anything after, let's say, year time, never opens, just suppress them completely. You can be more aggressive by sending few welcome emails and a way for them to opt out. And if they don't do anything, they could simply get suppressed. So it's up to you if you want to be lenient with this policy or you want to be aggressive. And just know that the world is split between those who open emails, those who never open emails, and those who open emails but they block the receipt of reading the emails, right? That's like the pixel that we inject inside the content. So with that in mind, you might be looking at between a very lenient and a very strong policy, right? It's literally up to you to decide on that. And maintain a proper hard soft bounce and suppress, obviously, any complaints. VBOUT has a full infrastructure that does that on your behalf, so you don't have to worry. But my number one suggestion in this is never throw away the bad emails, because you can put them in their own suppression list, and we know not to email them in the future. The last point here is to make sure you are spam compliant when it comes to the country you're in. If you're in the United States, obviously the rules are different from Canada or Europe or, a country in Africa like Gambia. With that, the compliance, that means in the United States, you can send a cold outreach. It's okay to do that, but you have to include your company name on the bottom. You have to include an unsubscribe option, preference option if you can. And if somebody requests removal, you have to immediately abide by this. Canada does not allow you to do that, for instance. Europe is a no-no in terms of cold outreach, that is. So navigate your way, understand your demographics, and accordingly adjust your strategy. We have a nice tool here, which is like a chart that displays by country spam compliance rules. Okay. So these are the 6 main things that you have to know. There's a lot more when it comes to compliance, but this really puts it in perspective for you so you can understand how email works. Now, some benchmarks that we've took out of our own database by monitoring high volume sending. This is all based on machine learning findings. A couple of really interesting findings here. One of them is that 35% of people are not opening emails on the same day they receive them. So give your audience a few days so they can open it. Don't do follow-ups immediately next day saying, hey, you didn't open my email. What's going on? I would say give a cadence of 4 to 5 days before you send any follow-ups. In terms of volume, most people tend to send between Tuesday and Thursday, but the data have shown that the weekends, including Monday, can get you very solid results. So don't be afraid to experiment and don't just follow industry stats, right? There could be some demographics that works much better. In your case, maybe the weekend they open better emails than weekdays. So experiment. And in terms of the time, most people send between, they start the volume, picking up volumes between 8 and 2 p.m. This is like the highest send. 10 a.m. is certainly the highest hour for sending. If you want to stay out of these hours and experiment as well, that's totally fine. Obviously, if you land in an inbox with, I don't know, 50 emails that hour, most likely you're going to get pushed to the bottom. Okay. And in terms of the content itself and personalization and how to structure your subject line, I'm going to be diving more into these in the follow-up session as I discuss email.